Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. Well, today I want to work with a little bit of Crackle paste and show you a cool technique with collage paper or tissue paper or napkins or whatever you have along those lines. Now I have a couple here. I have the one on the right is the texture paste Opaque Crackle from Ranger, and then the one on the left, I think this was a limited edition. It's the Icicle transparent Crackle paste. Now you can still get the transparent one, that's for sure. The Icicle one, I'm not sure, but it's just got basically like a light glitter through it, I would say. And so I am going to give each one of these a go just to see how they kind of turn out a little bit different. I think I'm going to lean towards the Opaque Crackle paste, but I'll give this one a go. I'll stir it up, and I haven't used this since I've purchased it. I am a little ashamed to say that, but truly that's what everybody has probably experienced at some time or another. When they purchase something, they see somebody use it, they purchase it, and then sometimes I just forget the technique or I move on to something else. But that's okay, it's here and I'm giving it a go. So I have just a strip of cardstock here. This is roughly half of an A2, the US A2 size card front. And so I'm just going to kind of make sure that there is a decent amount on there. I don't want this super smooth because I want big or good crackles, and to get those sort of really deep crackles you need a little bit more medium on there. If you want really, really fine crackles, then I would say less is more in that case, but if you want those sort of big deep crackles, then try and go for a little bit more, but be aware that this will of course change the drying time. Now this one here I am much more familiar with, and so I am able to pop this down. It's like icing a cake, or spreading butter on a toast or something like that. I'm going to take this one right to the edges, and I do a little bit of, pat, 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 so it gives that extra bit of texture to work with. Now these most definitely need a good amount of time to dry. I will just tell you that I put these aside for a whole day, for 24 hours. Now I'm sure they will probably dry before that, but this is just how it worked out in life. I'm going to shift these just over a little bit so they sort of aren't anchored to that scrap piece of paper quite as much, hopefully tomorrow. But I will come back to these, put these aside and let them dry. Now this is the next day, and I will just tell you that I was struggling with the sunlight filming today. So this video nearly didn't make the cut, but I really like the finished card, so I apologize from here on out. It is really hard. The sunshine was bright. Now this is the Icicle one here, and this kind of there is a little bit of shimmery glitter in it, and then this is the Opaque Crackle, and this was a good amount of Crackle. These are still pretty nice and flexible, and I can work with these. They dried pretty flat, which is always helpful. But what I wanted to do is I want to use these, I want to use that texture and add something over top of it. Now, if you are anything at all like me, I absolutely love these collage or tissue paper, collage paper, whatever you'd like to call it, from Tim Holtz. I have a few of them, and sometimes I do run out of some ways to use them, or maybe I just pop them aside and sort of a little bit want to hoard them because I do love them. So let's end up using a little bit today and showing you a couple of ways. Now I do have lots of videos on my channel around how to use these tissue papers, these collage papers. Now you don't have to use these. If you have napkins or serviettes with gorgeous patterns, go ahead. This is going to work in exactly the same way. If you have other collage pieces or tissue paper, give that a go. If you have plain tissue paper, then stamp on it and you'll be able to use it in the same way too. Lots of different ways to go about this. Now, because for this technique, I want to hide the raw edges of the tissue paper, so I am using a paintbrush dipped in water only, and that will give me those soft sort of fibrous edges that I'm after, and this helps us hide the edges, completely make them invisible when we pop them on top of the Crackle paste. And of course I am looking for those cracks to sort of shine through. I still want to see all of those gorgeous cracks underneath the images as well. I don't want to completely hide them. And again, it creates a really nice texture for where we don't have the tissue paper. Now this big gorgeous leaf up here was a little bit too big, so I'm going to sort of trim it down again just with a paintbrush and water. And if you give it honestly 1 second, and you can just pull it apart beautifully. Now, I do want the cracks to show up a little more than what they do. So I am adding a bit of vintage photo or ground espresso or something like that, ink, just a little bit, and I'm just adding water to it to activate it, and I want it all to seep down into those beautiful cracks. And here already you can see the cracks so much better. I don't really want the color from that though, so I'm actually going to take a damp towel and just wipe off over top so that I can get rid of most of the ink that's sitting on top. I really just want the ink that has moved down into those cracks. You of course could do that with any color as well. Now, I have a couple of things here. I have a clear gesso, I have a matte medium. I'm going to use these as glues to glue on my images here. I use a paintbrush and just figure out where I would like these to roughly go. Again, adjusting constantly as to what I would, to make this work for a card panel. I'm actually going to add some color to these afterwards as well. You can, if you want to, add color underneath and that before you put on the tissue paper. And then that's going to give you just like a different look. If you would like to use some watercolors, or if you would like to use some ink smushed down onto an acrylic block and use those like watercolors, or if you have some water soluble crayons or something like that, add some of that color down before the tissue paper, and that will give you that rusticy, watercolory, loose watercolor look underneath these images. So that is one way of going about it. Then I'm going to adhere down all of these. I'm making sure that I have the matte medium underneath and sitting on top of these images, so these are well set in place. Now here is the great thing, because we have those gorgeous sort of fibrous edges from the tissue paper, where we didn't cut it with scissors, we used the water technique to separate them, then these edges are blending completely into the background. You cannot see the edges when you look up close, which I love the look of. Now, just in case you were wondering, I have used the Botanical collage paper on the background there, and then this one here is going to be the Aviary. Now, this one has more coloured images, whereas the Botanical one just has the black and white features. This one has all the gorgeous birds, and I just love birds and card making, so this is right up my alley. I could choose so many. I love that there are lots to choose from, rather than just 2 or 3 repeated. It really does give you several different options so that you can use them on the same project without them looking the same at all. And they have some different colors to choose from as well. At this point, I was really struggling on choosing one, but I thought I would just draw a nice big circle around this colorful red bird here, because I had some of the berries up in the foliage I used on my background there, and I want to color those red, and I wanted to have the red tones carry through into the bird. So that's how I chose that one. Again, I've just drawn around it with the paintbrush so that I can get those, gorgeous sort of fibrous edges. I actually think I'm going to die cut this one out, so it won't be quite, as needed to have those edges, but nonetheless, it's just a really nice, easy way, even easier than using scissors, I would say. I pop this down onto a scrap piece of paper. I just pop the glue down first with a paintbrush, and then I am going to add it on top as well. Make sure you let everything dry completely. Pop it in the sun, pop it, to the side and forget about it for a bit and let it dry completely. Now, to color these on top, of course, there are several ways to go about that, but I am going to use something water soluble today. These are the Dina Wakley Scribble sticks. And these are very, very easy. I'm going to use 2 different greens, and I literally scribble. I will say there is no, rhyme or reason. It's just adding some color into those gorgeous leaves. And then I'm going to add a little bit on some of those berries as well. Again, just for a touch of red. I'm going to do some in red and some in orange. And then I just have a little bit of water down there on my background, and that's why I have a paintbrush and I'm getting the crayons to release some of their color and just dab it down just ever so gently. As I said, I'm so sorry. I'm struggling with the sun really badly in this one today, but here you can see those cracks pretty well coming through. And as I said, this card was sort of too gorgeous. I really want to share it. So I apologize very much. I am hopefully getting this under control. Now I have the honeybee dies. This is the Deckle Edge dies. Again, one of my favorites, one of my most favorites probably for 2024. And I'm going to cut out that bird. As I said, I thought I was going to cut it out, but I wasn't 100% sure, but that's okay. It has some music note sort of paper in the background. And I mean, if you wanted to, you don't have to use the collage paper. You can use a background stamp it down on the background, add on a bird or any focal point image. It might be a hedgehog or a mouse or a cat or a dog or a caterpillar. It can be anything. I just have these tissue papers and the bird, and when I opened up the drawer with the tissue papers, I saw the gorgeous Aviary one there, and I may as well make the most of it and use them whilst they're in front of me. I don't want to take away from the backgrounds that I have created and all of that gorgeous crackle, but I do want there to be a little bit of something going on. So I'm going to run half of my card base through with this Altenew embossing folder. This is the natural wicker pattern embossing folder. Now this one has been really popular. It's not even new out anymore, but I do note that it sells out pretty much every time. So I will link it down below to a couple of different places that hopefully have it in stock. Now I am going to add all of these elements on top. There is already enough dimension going on for this one, so I'll pop this one down flat, and then with the birdie I will pop a little bit of foam tape, just the 1mm, so that it gets a little bit of dimension but not too much. And in the photos at the end of this video in particular, you'll be able to see the gorgeous crackle effect of the background and the tissue paper over top, and not be able to see any of those blended edges at all. So this is a really fun technique. I hope that you give it a go. And if you do, then you can post your versions of this over on my Facebook page. You can find that it's called Come Crafting with Natasha, and I will have a link to that down below, as well as the products that I've used in today's video and some other little things, like my snail mail address. If you'd like to send me some actual cards in the mail, I would love to receive them. And anyhow, thank you so much for joining me. I can't wait until I see you next time. See you then. Bye.